Hey folks, Patrick Tipton from Portrayal Press. Welcome. Hey, as most of you know, we are a publisher of military-related titles covering vehicles and military-related subject matter. So one of the things that we've done over the years is collect a huge collection of Jeep books, and everybody loves the World War II Jeep. So today, I want to give you my top 10 list of every Jeep book that you ought to have in your library. Most of them are available. A couple of them are out of print, and they're going to cost you a little bit to find. But let me take you through them and tell you why you ought to own them. Number 1, Jeep Genesis, the Rifkind Report. So this book was commissioned by the Quartermaster Corps in 1943, so middle of the war, although the Jeep had been in production at that point for about 2 years. And it spends a lot of time chronicling the development of both the prototypes and the original and final standardized G503 Jeep that we've all come to know and love. It's a little terse. It's written in 1943 prose. It's a little stiff, but it really does a great job of laying out how the prototypes came together, how Willys was chosen as the primary contractor for the Jeep, and then how Ford came to be a secondary supplier of the GPW. So if you want it, there are a lot of different printings of this book. This was printed by ISO. We have some copies of it left. There's some other folks who publish it as well. Highly recommend it for your library. Number 2, Haled of a Jeep by Wade Wells. So this book was written originally in 1946. It's been reprinted a number of times. But so after the war, it chronicles the entire history of the G503, spends a little less time than the Rifkind Report on the pre-standardized and prototypes, but a lot more time on the history of the Jeep in service in World War II. Highly recommended, inexpensive book. Number 3 is All-American Wonder Volume 1 by Cowdery. This is really the first modern history of the G503 World War II Jeep. It's a great overview. There are some inaccuracies in the book, but at the time it was written, it was based on state-of-the-art knowledge, and he really did a phenomenal job. It's an easy read. There's lots of interesting articles that cover pretty much everything you want to know. The book is still in print. It's about 30 bucks, and you can find it everywhere. Highly recommended. If you're looking for a place to start to learn about World War II Jeeps, this is the first book you should buy. Number 4, The Jeep by Emile, Becker, and Guy Dentzer. Now, I used to like to joke that this book is the most expensive Jeep book that you're ever going to buy because it's written only in French and German. And so in order to understand it, you're going to have to get yourself a French girlfriend, and everybody knows how expensive that would be. Now, fortunately for you guys out there, somebody has recently reprinted this book in English. I do not have a copy of the English version, so I can't really tell you how well the translations are done. But this is a book in French. My wife happens to speak French, so it was pretty easy for me to make good use of the book. Beyond that, though, this book is really one of the first serious attempts to start documenting the differences between the Willys MB and the Ford GPW and the different time periods in which they were made and contracts. And so there are a lot of great pictures. So although the book is written in French and some of it you won't be able to understand, you'll get most of what they're talking about just by looking at the pictures. So the book is still in print, as I said, in English now. There's a version, I think it's overseas. I'm not sure if it's available in the United States, but worth looking for. If not, there's still versions of the French versions floating around here. We have a few copies as well. A great book to start looking at the differences if you're trying to do a factory class restoration of a Jeep. Number 5 is The Military Jeep by Lawrence Nabholtz. Now, this book has been out of print for a while. It was printed, there were only 1,500 copies. It was printed in 2 versions. This is the original. This is the updated and revised version. They're very difficult to find at this point, and they're very pricey. If you can find them, people want to keep them. The reason they're valuable is because Mr. Nabholtz, who sold surplus military parts and sold Jeeps and was a really excellent restorer, passed away a few years ago, basically documented the changes by contract by manufacturers. So there's a whole section in here on Willys by contract that talks to you about the slat grill, when the slat grill went from a slat grill to a stamped grill, you know, when the air cleaner went from the pancake style to the more standard, and then even within that, there are different embossings on those air cleaners. All of that information is chronicled in here, which is why people find this book so valuable. It's not in print, as I said before. Unfortunately, nobody's been able to get the rights to reprint it, and it doesn't look at this point like that's going to happen. So if you can get a hold of a copy, you should definitely get it. You're going to probably, again, pay dearly, but if you're doing a factory class restoration, this is still probably the best reference out there to try to get the Jeep like what it came out of the factory. Number 6 is The Essential Military Jeep by Graham Scott. Now, this is an ambitious book in the sense that it covers everything from prototypes to the GPA, the amphibious Jeep. And it doesn't do any of it. This is one of those books that we say is a mile wide and an inch deep, right? It's not a lot of depth on anything, but kind of like All American Wonder, it covers a lot of ground. It's got nice pictures in it, and it does a good job of telling the overall story and kind of giving you the lay of the land, including some strange prototype Jeeps like the half-track Jeep, and again, I mentioned the GPA, the amphibious Jeep. There's a 6-wheel tug that they made as well. So all of that stuff is covered. This is a nice book and worth adding to your collection. Number 7. This is called The Essential Military Jeep or the World War II Jeep Restorer's Guide. There's a bunch of different names. What this book is a compilation of all the War Department technical manuals on the Jeep from World War II. So basically there are 3 manuals in it, plus some people add extras. Our version has some extras in it as well. It's TM9 which is your basic operator and maintenance guide for the World War II Jeep. TM9 1803 Alpha, which tells you how to rebuild the motor, and TM9 1803 Bravo B, which tells you how to rebuild anything else on it. So if you're going to own a Jeep, you need this book. Again, there are a bunch of people who've done reprints of it. We sell one as well. We also added in some information from Carter Carburetor that tells you a little bit more on how to tune up your carburetor and get optimal performance out of it. And we also added all the changes. Just a note to the wise here, if you do buy another version and you start rebuilding your engine, pay special attention to all the changes, and they're out there and it's documented, but there's an error in the book that will have you put the crank caps on backwards, and when you do, you're going to starve the engine of oil and you'll ruin your brand new rebuild. So if you're working with a Jeep restorer or an engine shop that's done Jeep motors before, they'll put it together correctly, but if you follow the manual and look at the pictures, you're going to put it in backwards and you're going to ruin your new motor, so don't do that. Number 8 is the Rare World War II Jeep Photo Archive by Mark Askew. Mark is the publisher of Jeep World over in the UK. And Mark basically pulled together some very, very cool pictures on all the weird Jeeps out there. And I mentioned before that there's a half-track Jeep, there are amphibious Jeeps, and obviously everybody knows the GPA. But this book will take you through all of the wacky versions. There's a bulldozer type Jeep. I mean, on and on and on and on. And so these are things that most of them never made it past the prototype and experimental stage. But as you move through the Jeep collecting and are adding to your library and want to just amuse yourself, it's a high production quality, very, very good pictures, still in print and available. And again, worth it if you're just interested in some of the more random things that they did with the World War II Jeep. So number 9 is the World War II Jeep Military Portfolio. This is a compilation of articles from everywhere from Stars and Stripes to other magazines. It's just a smorgasbord of Jeep information. Most of it will not be new, but it's nicely packaged. It's an inexpensive little book that was published by Brooklands Books in the UK. And again, it's an enjoyable read and an inexpensive read, so worth having. Number 10 is John Farley's Standardized Wartime Jeep. Now, what John Farley attempted to do with this book, this is a second printing of the book. It's printed over in the UK. I don't have a copy of the book because we're currently sold out of it, although I'm waiting for a shipment to come over, which should be in the next month. The book basically chronicles the changes, again by contract and by manufacturer, to the G503 Jeep from the first production Jeeps, the slack rails, all the way through the end of production in 1945. Lots of pictures, a great resource, again, if you're looking to do a factory class restoration and you want to know what's correct for your 1944 Willys MB. This book is going to help you figure out if you've got the right air cleaner, as an example. So that's a wrap. That's my top 10 list of books that you ought to have in your library about the G503 World War II Jeep. And then one more shameless plug here. We sell most of the books that are still in print on our website. Some of them are also available on Amazon through us and through other sellers, so you can look there as well. And a final note, if you're restoring a Jeep that was made prior to 1943 and you're trying to do a factory class restoration and get it all right, know that there are about 60 different manuals that were produced over the life of the Jeep. Different versions. There are some major changes, obviously, when you start with slack rails and those. And every contract basically up into 1943 had its own set of manuals with it. And so if you've got any questions about that and you're trying to get really specific and make sure that you have the right part for your particular Jeep, give us a call and we can look it up and help you. We have reprints of some of them, not all of them, but we may be able to help you out in that way as well. So Patrick Tipton, Portrayal Press, signing off. Thanks for tuning in. Please hit the like button, subscribe, share with your friends. Help us grow this channel. Thank you.